How's it going? This is Joe Intel. Today I'm going to be talking about room correction using a calibrated mic, free software, and DSP. So in a previous video, we talked about whether you should use measurement tools or whether you should use your ears to determine whether a system or speakers are working well or not. And I came to the conclusion that I prefer to use measurements first in order to see if I am at a baseline flat response. And then from there, I'll tweak the system in order for it to sound good to my ears, and that might not be flat. So for me, it's a little bit of both, and so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the first thing you're going to need is a calibrated mic. And for me, I use the UMic 1, and this is a USB mic, and I like that because you can plug it directly into your computer, and there's nothing else that you really need. Now, I also have one of these. This is a calibrated mic from Dayton Audio, but this one does require an XLR input. So if you have an interface with an XLR input, then you can use that. But if not, then you might have to use something like this UMic 1. The thing I do like about the UMic 1 is because it's USB, it's already calibrated for SPL. The main difference between a calibrated mic and a regular mic is that we know the frequency response of this specific mic. So before this ships out, they test this for the frequency response and they give you a number down here. You plug that number into their website and they give you a calibration profile that you plug into the software, so they know the exact profile of this particular microphone. And that's important if you're trying to get the most accurate response because, of course, microphones vary from one to the other. The next thing you're going to need is a software, and the software we're going to be using today is called REW. Some people call it REW. I like to say REW. So that software there is going to be able to do a ton of different things, a lot of which we cannot get into right now. But one of the things it can do for sure is it can play pink noise in order to figure out if our system is playing at a certain level. I use 85 decibels as my reference. And from there, what we're going to do is figure out what the frequency response of the speakers are from my listening position here. And we're going to try to flatten that out in order to make it a flatter response. The last thing you're going to need is you're going to need a DSP. And so this is the DSP that I have here. This is a Dayton Audio, the DSP 408. And this is a 4 input and 8 output DSP. So this is pretty amazing, especially for the price. Dayton did send this to me for a review as well as the calibrated mic. And so these were free for me to review, but something to disclose there. But yeah, I really like this. The other one that I've tried previously and that I actually own is the Mini DSP 2x4, which is also a great system. But the one I'm going to be showing you today is this Dayton Audio 4x8. And another thing is that you can use this in a car actually. I'm going to be using it here at my desk, but later on I will install this into my vehicle. That's the point of this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open REW on my computer, and I'm going to go ahead and plug in the UMic 1. And so what you'll notice is that it detects the UMic 1 and it says, do you want to use it for measurement? And the answer is yes, I do. Now, do you have a calibration profile? And this is what you download from their website. And this is the calibrated file here. So let me go here for microphone calibrations. And they have a profile for when you have the microphone facing straight ahead versus when you have it 90 degrees. We're going to have it pointed straight ahead, so I'm going to use this one here. All right, since I updated, it wants me to always allow it here. So it's a little bit of an annoyance, but okay. Go ahead and record. Play some pink noise, and for my listening position, I'm looking for 85 dB. Okay, so that's 85 decibels right there. Now it's nighttime right now, so I'm gonna actually do the test at, let's say, 75 dB, just because kids are sleeping. One's awake though. Close enough. So now I know that my speakers are about 75 decibels, and that's the reference level. Now I can go ahead and run a sweep test. First, I'm going to play the left side, and what I do is I run it a few times, some on this side of my ear, but then because what we know from binaural recordings, some goes to this ear, so I want to take that into account and kind of average that into my mix. So what I typically do is I'll measure, let's say, 3 times on this side to 1 side on this side, and kind of average those out just so I get a baseline of about how it sounds on both sides of my head, but of course with more weight. to this ear here. Now I'll do the same thing for the right speaker, and so I'll have it on this side, and I'll run it 3 times here, 1 time on this side, average it out. So I'm gonna do it here on the left side. Let me just make sure that the left speaker only is playing. So I'm gonna go ahead and start measuring. Okay. Do that again. And one more time. And then just for the heck of it, I'll put the microphone here. Now, ideally you'd want this on a stand, but for this video, I'm just holding it just so you get an idea. So I'll do one on this side. And you might be able to see a difference. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at all of these here. Let me go ahead and zoom this out slightly and make sure this is from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So this is the frequency response of the left speaker. And if I were to smooth this out drastically, let's say using psychoacoustic smoothing, you'll kind of get a very general idea of how this speaker performs. And so you'll see that the bass is boosted around here and the treble starts to drop down this way, and there's a dip here. Yeah, all typical stuff in a non-ideal situation. Let's go ahead and take a look at this from the other side, and you'll notice that from the other side of my head, there is definitely a change in how the speaker sounds. So I'm going to go ahead and apply no smoothing, but what I'll do is I'll average this response, and this will be my response for the left speaker. Left. Okay? So these are taken at the listening position, and at the listening position, a lot of times what you'll notice is that your room will interact with the speakers drastically. And so if it's too drastic to the point where you have a lot of nulls and a lot of things that DSP won't correct, what you end up getting if you try to correct them is you'll get overcorrection, where the sound sounds weird because it's trying to make it perfect, but it's almost impossible in that room. There's just nothing that you can do to fix some of these issues. And in that case, what you may want to try is try to do it near field with the microphone close to the speaker, let's say less than 2 feet, just to try to get an idea and at least make it so that the speaker is flat from where it's at. And so you may not be able to correct for your room, but at least you can correct for maybe some imperfections in the speaker itself. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the other side here. Go ahead and do this right side. Make sure to change it here. Right. Start measuring. Okay. Do it again. And then from the other side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear all of these except for the speakers that I just ran on the right hand side. And so if you want to take a look at these real quick before I average them, let me go ahead and do psychoacoustic smoothing on these, and you'll see here. Okay, so that's the right speaker, and so you can see actually here that it's very different from how the left speaker performs. So I'm going to go ahead and average the right side with no smoothing, apply, and then average the response, and that will be right. Okay, cool. So now what we can do is take a look at the left and right. Let me go ahead and do psychoacoustic smoothing just so you can kind of get an idea of the major differences between the two. So the right hand side and the left speaker. So the left speaker is near a wall, and so you see here that there's actually a lot more bass, right? Because it's up against the wall. Let's see what else here. The right has a dip here between 1 kilohertz and 2.5 kilohertz. So yeah, something to consider. And so what I will typically do from here is I will try to correct for this response one speaker at a time. I'll choose the left speaker first. I'll go into EQ. Okay. So let's just say, for example, if I was using a mini DSP, and the reason why there's different options here is because some allow for more filters than others. A lot of people are going to use a mini DSP, so that's what I'll pretend I have right now. It doesn't really matter. Some of them just have, let's say, 10 filters you can use. Some have way more. Some have 5. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to go ahead and choose a speaker type. I'll just say full range. I'm going to go from 35 hertz. And I don't like this this change in slope here. Let's let it get down to 20. Who cares? I don't like this high frequency fall slope. So I'm going to set the target level. All right, so this is what it found it needs to be at in order to make the proper correction. So it needs to make a lot of cuts here. Go down here, and let's match the range from, where are we here? 35 hertz. So let's go from 30 hertz to 20 kilohertz. 1, 2, 3. So basically, these settings here so that you don't boost too much overall. Flatness target, okay, go ahead and match. And so you see it trying to figure out which filters to create in order to get as close to a flat response as possible. And so here, we'll go through this here. So the left, that's how the speaker actually measured. This is what we want it to be, right? We want it to be this straight line. And this is what it thinks it will sound like after the filters are applied. So a lot better than this one for sure. And so it fixes a lot of that bass, the issues with the bass here. So what you get in response is the preset or the filters that we're going to be using for the DSP. So you go ahead and click on EQ filters here, and I'll sort them descending. And so what you'll see is the frequency, 53 hertz, the gain, so minus 11 decibels, and the Q, which is how wide it is on the frequency. 2 is the width, minus 11.5 is how much it's going to be reduced by. And then another one at 132 hertz and 151, 515, and so on. All right, so let's do the same thing for the right side. All right, so you see there's a nasty dip around here on the right side. The reason I set it so 30 hertz is because these speakers don't go to 20 hertz. If they did, then I would match the range from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. 30 is even stretching it, but that's okay. Individual max boost, the reason I have these at 6 and 6 is because I don't want it to try to fix anything. If it's worse than 6 decibels up or down, or in this case in max boost, if it's down 6 decibels, I don't want it to try to boost those frequencies more than 6 decibels. That's already pushing it there. And so that's the reason why I use 6 decibels on those two. Those are the filters that we're going to be using on the DSP. Now you may be asking, well, why do you need a DSP unit? On Windows, there's an application that you can use where you can plug in all these filters, and there's a software that's going to use those filters and equalize everything that's coming into the system and coming out of the speakers. For me, I don't really prefer that. I feel like that'll cause some sort of delay and, of course, overhead on the computer. And so what a DSP will do is you'll plug those numbers into this, and this is dedicated to processing that in real time. And so you won't get any latency. You don't have to have software on there. The reason why there's 4 in, right, is because if you use this in a car, you may have your front speakers and your rear speakers. For this particular case, I'm just going to be using 2 of them input, left and right, and I'm going to be using 2 output, left and right. You may want to use more if you're going to be using a sub, right? So you can use one of these and mix it down to mono and equalize for a sub. And you may want to have it set so that the crossover is set between the sub and your main speakers. That would only take 3 channels, right? And you'd still have the rest of these. You can use this if you're trying to do a 3-way active design. It's more than enough to handle that. So let's go ahead and plug these numbers into the DSP and see how it sounds. I'll do some measurements after that's done and see if our measurements are better than what we had before. What we have here is I am running Windows 7 in a virtual machine because unfortunately this DSP, the software only runs on PC and not Mac. If that's going to be an issue for you, get the module that allows you to use this on your smartphone. So if you're probably going to be using an Android or iOS, and in that case, you will be able to do almost everything that I'm doing here on your smartphone. So that's really cool. I don't have that module, so I had to run this virtual machine. But I'm going to go ahead and reset the EQ on this. Reset to flat. And then channel 2, go ahead and reset that one as well. and channel 3 as well. We won't be using those. All right, so channel 1 is what I will use for the left channel. I'm gonna make sure that this is all the way to 0 dB. Is going into the channel 1 left channel is also going to come out of channel 1 on the output, which is going to be the left channel. So high pass filter, defeat. So I don't want to use any high pass filter. These speakers are going to be running full range. So let's take that off. And then I don't want a low pass filter either. There you go. So what we do want is we want to use this parametric EQ. And parametric EQ is a little bit different than a graphic EQ, and it's just because you can control the width of it, of the changes, whereas a graphic EQ, the width is kind of set. Remember how I set the REW for the mini DSP 2x4? And so it has 6 that it came up with. So these are 6 filters. Now this can go up to 10 filters. So if you want it to be more specific and have a finer control, then you can go all the way up to 10. But in this case, I have 6. So this is how you do it. The first thing here is the lowest frequency. So remember I sorted this out. So the first frequency is 53 Hertz minus 12 dB with a Q of 2. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to choose for the first one, 53.7. Okay, so it might not be exact, but close enough, 53.7. And then, so the Q of 2 and minus 12.3. Minus 12.3. So I'll go ahead and do that for every single one. Okay, so those are all my filters. Now, let me go back here to REW and see what the filters are. So as you can see, these kind of line up, right? So that's what it thinks it should be doing. And that follows this curve here. All right, so I'm going to be doing the same thing for the right speaker. If you want to use a subsonic filter, you could do that. Let's say if you have some speakers that you know will blow up if you try to play them at 20 Hertz, then you could put a 20 Hertz low pass filter here. Okay, real quick, I just want to show you what the Q does. So remember I was saying how it's the width. So let's say 1, you see 1 is much wider than if I say a Q of 8. It's a very thin setting, right? So it changes that frequency, but only for that specific frequency. And that's the reason why you want to use a parametric EQ. It lets you adjust how wide of a change that is. The target level on the right speaker is slightly lower, 69.7 versus the other one. So the target level on the left speaker is 70.8. So you have a difference of 1.1 dB. So I'm going to compensate for that. And what I'll do is I'm going to turn down channel 1 by 1.1 decibels. So after all the corrections, they should be about the same level. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. This is the method that I use. Some people might do it a different way, but this is what I found works for me. And I've been doing this for a while. And yeah, this is what I use when I'm doing DSP correction in my car, at my desk, anywhere else. Let's see how it sounds when I measure it. All right, so now I can go ahead and turn off the virtual machine. All the settings are in the DSP, and so now I no longer need that software. And I'll do the right channel. All right, so just for simplicity, let's go ahead and use psychoacoustic smoothing for this. Let's go ahead and compare that to prior to DSP. So here's without DSP, that's how it looked. And here is after. So you can tell that is a lot flatter of a response. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sound better. It just means that it's a flatter response. So the next thing to do is to actually test this with music and see if it actually sounds better, right? Just because it measures flat here doesn't mean that it's going to actually sound better to me. So I'm going to play some music that I know. I have a set of maybe 20 or 30 songs that I know very well, and I'm going to go through them and see if there's any issues, any problems, or anything that sounds weird. Because I know that it's a relatively flat response, what I'll go ahead and do is just change the tone controls to my preference from here on. All right, so flat is not perfect for everyone, and so I'm going to go ahead and change the tone controls on my 2 buffer here and see where I like it. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Let me know if that was useful. Hopefully it was. And this is a simplified version. I just wanted to keep it kind of simple for you guys, just to give you an idea of how I use DSP, how I use my calibrated mic to take measurements, and how I use REW in combination with a DSP unit in order to make my sound better. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. If there's something you disagree with, maybe something you like, or something you found out that was new. Anyway, if you did, make sure to like, subscribe. If you're interested, I have a Patreon. It's at patreon.com/Joe and Tell. Anyway, that's it. Take care. Bye bye.